Today is an important day and an important video because not only are we reading two fantasy books with a murder mystery subplot, one of which I have misplaced, and my next video might be called Covers with Cassidy and the Missing Book, because it'll be a video on me searching for this gosh darn book because I've looked everywhere and I can't seem to find it. Good thing I have the audiobook. But besides the point, we are reading these two books. We have also been tasked with evidence and an unsolved case file. We will have to be figuring out the case of Veronica Falcone. Covers with Cassidy and all of you are on it. Hello, welcome to the channel! I'm so excited for this video. This video will be split into like different parts. We will be completing for the unsolved mystery. There are 3 parts to it. So you will see one part coming up now. Then you will hear me talk about the Goblin Emperor. Then we'll have another part. We'll talk about City of Stairs. And then you will see the last part of this, which I think is really exciting. And if you want to see me solve this, you have to wait till the end, which I think is exciting. But let's talk about books real quick. City of Stairs I know absolutely nothing about. I googled fantasy books with a murder mystery plotline and this one came up. And it's a book I've always wanted to read. I think that it sounds intriguing. It sounds like it's got a little bit of spooky elements to it, so I think it's perfect for like fall. And you know, a murder mystery, your girl is here to solve the day. Right. This is all we needed, is Covers with Cassidy on the case. I'm super excited to read this one. I wish I could tell you more about it, but I honestly have no idea, so you'll have to watch me read it to figure what it's about. The Goblin Emperor is a book that's been on my shelf for a really long time. It was actually a cover buy for me at one point in time. I really like this cover and I don't know why, and this cover screams fall for me, so the fact that it had a murder mystery subplot in it made me very excited because then it is fall. The Goblin Emperor I know follows the goblin child who is the 4th son to the king, and the king does not like him because he's half goblin and kind of despises him, so he sends him far away. And he never expects to see his dad again or be king. But something happens in his kings and all 3 of his brothers before him are killed. And now he takes the crown and he has to live through like political intrigue and court politics. And he has no idea how to do that because he was not raised in this scenario. And yeah, this one sounds really good. I know that it has a lot of like intimacy within the court. I know that Emma and Maria, who are both my patrons, always talk about it and talk about how much there is about the politics. And it is very like based around what's happening in the boardrooms, the conversations, and all of that, which I'm really excited for. I do hope there is a murder mystery plot that's like a big part of it, because obviously that's why I'm reading it in this video, and I'm super excited to read it, and I really hope I love it. I'm sweating in this, so I really need to get on the case, and let's open our evidence. This thing is so cool. I just got it off Amazon. I'm not sponsored by anyone, but like, it says it's perfect for individuals, couples, groups, or parties. It says like the unsolved case is a homicide. It has the case number on it. And then on the back it says to be opened by authorized personnel only, which is us. Sealed by Captain W. Dixon. Date sealed 5/10/1948. And it tells us kind of about it and what it includes. And I'm super excited. I also have yarn, a wall, and some thumbtacks, so let's get to solving. Oh my gosh, there's so much stuff in here. We have photographs. Oh, this is Veronica Falcone, our victim. And then we just have like envelopes to open once we've solved little objectives, so these can get hidden. Pictures of everyone, and then the case file. Objective number 1, reopen the case 1 of 3. When you find the evidence proving Veronica's death was far more suspicious than it appears, visit the page to see if you're right. There's a lot of information in this, and this is a lot more than I think I bargained for. I was expecting this to be easy. I think it's going to take me like 2 or 3 hours, so sit tight. I hope you enjoy a long video. Grab a drink, and cheers! I'm drinking a Riesling. It's a little warm, but I can't be too picky when I'm on the case. Like, at least I'm allowed to drink on the job, right? We have a case file inventory list. Veronica, 6'9" photo, which I think can go on the wall. Newspaper article. Oh my gosh, there's so much to read here. Joey Caruso, boyfriend. 105 Main Street apartment, Robin Falls, Connecticut. Oh, should we read what happened? Murder investigation underway after Veronica Falcone's motorcycle found. Written by Norman Chase, staff writer for the Robin Falls Observer. A huge breakthrough was made yesterday afternoon in the disappearance of celebrated war heroine Veronica Falcone when her motorcyclist was found at the bottom of Jackson Ravine near the bend on Fallview Road. Sheriff Sam Shepard of the Robin County Sheriff's Department received a call from someone who was seen a motorcycle at the bottom of the Jackson Ravine beside the riverbed. When police arrived on the scene, they were able to determine that the bike did in fact belong to Falcone. What began as a missing person search became a homicide investigation when police determined that the brake cable to Ms. Falcone's bike had been tampered with, clearly indicating foul play. Veronica Falcone went missing on August 26. It assumed her motorcycle had been in the ravine ever since and went unnoticed due to the heavy summer foliage. Investigators believe her body was washed downstream as devoured by wildlife, given the length of time that had passed in the family of coyotes known to be prowling in the vicinity. Ugh. Ms. Falcone was last seen in the late evening hours of August 26th at Town Center Motors, where her boyfriend Joey Caruso, good name, was performing repairs on her motorcycle. A witness claims to have overheard a fight between Ms. Falcone and Mr. Caruso before she drove away. Mr. Caruso told police that Ms. Falcone was investigating something big and even received a death threat, but there was no evidence supporting his claims, and he is currently the prime suspect. In a statement earlier today, Sheriff Sam Shepard said, due to the items found on the motorcycle and other witness reports, we are questioning 4 other suspects. However, the evidence strongly indicates that Mr. Caruso is the guilty party, and once it was determined he is indeed guilty, we'll lock him up and throw away the keys. The other 4 suspects under questioning are Robin Falls residents Mildred Morehouse, Stanley Smithers, Evelyn Churchill, and Edward Hamilton. Veronica Falcone graduated summa cum laude from Vassar College in 1942 with a degree in investigative journalism. She immediately applied to the U.S. Foreign Services in the hopes of serving her country. At first rejected because she was a woman, her relentless perseverance eventually paid off and she was accepted. Using the codenamed name Falcone, Miss Falcone quickly became an expert at using her feminine wills to extract secrets out of high-ranking German commanders. Miss Falcone saved thousands of lives through her efforts and was awarded several medals of distinction for her espionage. Notably, she wrote about her explicits as a family World War II spy for an ongoing column in the Old Glory Gazette using the pseudonym Foxtrot. Her writings during the war captured the imagination of countless young girls and inspired millions of Americans due to her daring adventures and immeasurable contributions toward the Allied victory. After the war ended and her identity was revealed, Miss Falcone became a national celebrity. She spent a year traveling the nation giving speeches about her experiences and settled down in New York City, where she worked as an investigative journalist under the pen name Jed Berg. Falcone had been a polarizing member of the Robin Falls community since moving into her grandmother's estate this summer. She was known for wearing non-ladylike clothing and smoking cigars while driving through town on her motorcycle. I like Miss Falcone. When asked for a comment, Mayor Artie Plymouth said, I hadn't personally met the young lady, but everyone seemed to either love or hate her. I didn't feel either, but I know she'd have looked real nice in a pretty dress. I sure hope Sheriff Shepard gets to the bottom of this quick. Oh, and we have stuff on the back of this too. There's so much. We are a little overwhelmed over here. There's a lot more information than the station is prepared for. I am going to read some of this and then I will get back to you with some of my information. Okay, I believe I'm ready to give you some information on our case. So here we have our victim, Ronnie. She was super beloved, and we have 5 different suspects. The first one, which was her boyfriend, Mr. Joey Caruso. Joey was convicted and actually hung himself the day after he was convicted with a note that said he killed her. Now we have a photograph, we have some evidence of this. which I think will play into eventually, but of course, let's put Joey on the wall. So, Joey was her boyfriend. Now, Joey is the easiest suspect, in my opinion, and because Joey worked on her motorcycle brakes the day before she went missing. And when her motorcycle brakes were found, they were cut. They were cut so that when someone pressed hard pressure on the brakes, they would no longer work. Joey is the easiest suspect. My personal opinion is I don't think it was Joey. I think that he has a daughter and he wouldn't risk going to jail, and that working on her brakes right before is just too easy. We also have an invoice of exactly what happened and what he worked on. I think that this is such an easy out that it couldn't have been him, and that he was falsely accused, and rest in peace, Joey. Now, our next suspect is Evelyn Churchill. Evelyn is Joey's ex. Evelyn and Joey were actually engaged for a year and had been dating for many years. There was 2 days until Evelyn and Joey were about to walk down the aisle when Joey met Ronnie, and they hit it off, and the next day, Joey went and ended things with Evelyn. So Evelyn really hates Joey. Evelyn was seen by Jessie Mae Baker telling Ronnie that she hopes that she drives her motorbike into the creek and dies. Which is pretty much all we have against Evelyn. And Evelyn, I mean, I'd be pretty freaking pissed at Joey and Ronnie and probably say some mean things to them too if I was Evelyn. Because, I mean, you were about to get married. And that freaking sucks. Our next suspect, Mildred, is Ronnie's cousin. Mildred hates Ronnie because Mildred stayed home to take care of her grandmother. And Ronnie went off to the war. And then when Ronnie came back a war hero, their grandmother gave all of her belongings to Ronnie instead of Mildred, and I think essentially despised Mildred and left Mildred her bedpan. Go Granny for being salty, and I'm kind of here for it, and when I die, I'm leaving my bedpan to whoever I hate. Now, with Mildred, I think Mildred has killed someone before. From what I got, it seemed like Mildred may have poisoned their grandmother. Mildred has an alibi. Mildred's alibi is this old lady that she kind of hangs out with at the day home, Miss Fanny Newton, and Miss Fanny Newton says that they played cards all day, except for that she did fall asleep because she remembers feeling drowsy right after being served by tea. Can we guess who gave her the tea? So in my opinion, I think Mildred seems to use drugs to kill people. That's just what I'm putting out into the universe. So I actually don't think it's Mildred either. Honestly, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing this first time. I think I'm just supposed to figure out what is suspicious about it, and then I open more. But here are what my thoughts were as I went through everything. And here's my picture of Fanny. I just couldn't find it, but I finally did. So let's connect Fanny to Mildred. Our next suspect is Stanley Smithers. Stanley Smithers has been stalking Ronnie. Okay? Stanley Smithers shows up at Ronnie's house with flowers and wants to take her for a steak dinner and gets really angry and all these other things, and it's just like peeps into her window to try and get her to come outside. He is obsessed. And I mean, that is a decent suspect in my opinion. He's just a creep, and it is what it is. Now, Stanley Smithers was seen by Ruby Jones, which is Ronnie's neighbor, literally like creeping into her house and peeking through her windows and yelling at her. She's the one that sees him be so stalkerish all the time. Stanley is a solid perpetrator. I can't lie. I have nothing to argue with. I think Stanley could have done it. Our last suspect is Edward Hamilton. Edward Hamilton works for the paper. He was looking to hire someone to be his like new town investigator when Ronnie showed up. She was a spy in the army. It's like the perfect job, and she actually worked for a place, a site in New York City under a pen name. She shows up, Edward refuses to give her the job, so then she contacts Edward under her pen name with all of her like with her resume, and he is about to hire this guy on the spot, but says, oh, we should do an interview just for formality and have it like on paper that I did an interview, when Ronnie shows up and Edward loses his temper and pretty much like has a real bad time with being embarrassed that Ronnie was a girl. Let's put Edward on the board. So Edward was seen threatening her, throwing a chair, getting really into her face, and then afterwards saying that he's kind of glad she died, by his employee, Norman Chase, who was a reporter, who Norman thought that they should hire her because, I mean, she's good at what she does. Go Norman for not being sexist. We're left with this, and everyone kind of has a reason to murder her. Besides her boyfriend. I think her boyfriend he was just the easy suspect, and I would take him off this wall. But why do I think this is suspicious? Why did I think that this case is very, very suspicious? Well, we have another player. We have Mr. Sam Shepherd, who is the town sheriff. Let's throw him right here. Now, Sam Shepherd happens to be the uncle of Miss Evelyn Churchill. Sam Shepherd also happens to be currently employing Miss Mildred Morehouse. Sam Shepherd worked on another case of another girl and that happened to go missing that Stanley Smithers was a suspect for. And it seems like he got Stanley Smithers off for that one. Or whatever happened to her. I actually don't know if she just went missing, but it was like threatened that Ronnie knew more about Stan, and Stan said to talk to Sam. And last but certainly not least, Sam Shepherd is the alibi for one Edward Hamilton. So, in my opinion, this case is bogus because Sam Shepherd is connected to all of them. And Sam Shepherd would maybe want her to die because of his niece, Evelyn Churchill. Am I onto something? I feel like I'm onto something. Let's look. Let's find out if I am onto something, because there is a site for me to go on to see if my suspicion is correct. Let's do that. I think I may have just skipped a couple steps. Apparently, I'm supposed to reopen her case. So I need to say which of these 7 items is needed. Okay, we may have got way ahead of myself with this, but obviously we know my prediction is that Sam Shepherd killed everyone. So, let's see this. I started the Goblin Emperor. I'm about 30% in, and I'm really enjoying it right now. I think I'm sitting at a 4, but here's the thing. Right now, it's really small. It's really intimate. It's very enclosed. We are into the character's head. We are seeing his day-to-day tasks. We're seeing what he does as emperor, how his life is changing in this transition from boy who had nothing to do with the court to being emperor. And I'm enjoying that at this point, but I need more, and I'm scared I'm not going to get more. I need there to somehow be a plot. I need there to be just like a driving force as a reader. I'm just not that much of a character-driven reader, so although right now I'm currently enjoying being with this character, this kind of like slice of life style, if I don't get even just like a little tidbit of plot, I'm not going to end up enjoying this, which I really, really hope it does. There is the murder mystery. Like, we have heard that his dad was killed, that his brothers were killed, that something happened, and that it was not a freak accident. Like, someone put something on the plane and it went down because of that thing. So like, all I need is that. If I can just grasp onto that, I'll be perfectly happy. And so I really, 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 really hope we get that, but I'm really scared we're not going to. Hi, let's talk Goblin Emperor. I don't actually know where I put the book at this current moment in time, so I can't tell you the exact page number I'm on, but I can tell you the percentage. I am 74% of this book. Wow, I meant to update you a lot earlier. This is going to make the end of the book update very boring because I think that I am sitting at a 2-star right now. For the last, like from the last time we checked in until about 50%, I started to sit at a 3-star, but a 3-star that I was like, okay, If this doesn't go anywhere, it'll become a 2, but it could become a really high 3. The book just never escalates. This is a perfect fall cozy read in my opinion because it is very intimate. It's very secluded. You are in our emperor, our protagonist's mind, and it's just kind of about his daily duties and him learning the court intrigue and the politics and his relationships with everyone else and just being so new to being an emperor and having to figure it all out. I do have a problem with how good of an emperor I think he is and how easy he clicks on to court intrigue and like the scheming, and he knows exactly who to trust and who not to trust. I think that happens far too easily for someone who was raised completely in isolation and away from this. But other than that, it's just a very intimate read. It's very secluded. In some form, it reminds me of the Farseer trilogy. Just the idea of when you read Farseer, you have Fitz's head, and it's very like intimate within Fitz, and you get to see the daily battles Fitz has with himself, and this is kind of what this book is like too. The Farseer trilogy is much more expansive than this in my opinion, and my biggest problem with this book is there's no plot. I put this in a murder mystery solving video because I feel like the back of the book puts a little bit more emphasis on the fact that he could be murdered by the people that murdered his father, and so I felt like that was going to be a bigger play in the book, but that has not happened. We've seen like brief snippets of that, but nothing like intense or insane. There's no like, I can't sit here and put together who I think did it because I'm given no hints. We're mostly just given court intrigue. But yeah, there's no plot. Plot who? Plot where? No plot. And if someone tells you there's a plot in this book, I think they are lying. This book is literally just about the character relationships and the character and our main character's internal struggle. If you're a character-driven reader, I think you should pick this book up because I think it is supreme for people who want a intimate character read and an intimate character analysis. I'm not that person. I need a plot, at least a small one. And all this book needed to do was give me strands of that murder mystery for me to latch on, and I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more than I did. Well, I do. I'm still not done, but I don't think my thoughts will change much from this moment in time. So I'm definitely let down. I don't think I'll be trying anything else by this author. I'm bored. I'm just really, really, really bored. Also, there's a lot of names and a lot of formality here. The writing style is very, I want to say true to the time where like the characters always say serenity to the emperor, and it happens a million times, and I get very annoyed hearing that word. It's my own little internal irk that I'm just like, okay, I get it. I get he's the emperor. I don't need to hear serenity a million times. I don't need to hear that he is the emperor a million times. It's very repetitive. It's very just close quarters. It's just not a book for me. It's really hard to talk about a book like this as I'm just kind of meh about it. I don't have a lot of feelings. I was mostly just bored. It's just not a book for me versus a book like a book that I can actually critique because there are things I wanted out of the book. Mostly I just wanted a murder mystery out of this book and I didn't get it. But that was my own expectations and my own loss. Does this have fall vibes? Yes. Does it have a murder mystery? Yes. It's just not a prominent part of the plot. Like if you don't want that as a big part of the plot, it's there. But I wanted a bigger portion of the plot. Well, I wanted a plot. I wanted that to be the plot. I wanted there to be a plot and it to be a murder mystery. If that makes sense. I'll update you when I'm done. I finished The Goblin Emperor. My thoughts on this is it is a 2-star read. A low 2-star. I did not enjoy this book. I feel really bad. I know that Emma pretty much told me either I'm going to hate it or I'm going to adore it, and there was no in between. So I definitely am on the didn't like it side. The book just has no plot. I discussed it earlier. There's no plot, and one of the other problems I had, which I want to say I did listen to it through audio, and lots of people are going to comment down below I should have physically read it for this reason, but I don't think that I would have comprehended this physically even more than I did audio. There are a lot of names and family names that like have to do with each other, so it's really hard to figure out who was who, and I always had to stop and be like, who the frickety frack is this person? I have no idea. And where their lines linked up, and it was just a lot. And normally I love multi-charactered stories. It is my favorite. Actually, that is a big critique I have of this book, is I wish it was multi-charactered. Specifically, there's a character who goes off to like solve the murder mystery, and I really wish we had followed that character and seen what that character had gotten up to throughout the like 4 months that he disappears for. I think that would have made this book A1. I really prefer a multi-POV'd story than a singular POV, but with this book and its huge cast of characters, although you're only following one perspective, it's got a huge cast of characters. The names being so dang similar just don't vibe with me. Like, distinct names, please. But I get why it had those similar names. It's just something I really don't like. Yeah. Other than that, there was no murder mystery. I really shouldn't include this in this vlog, but it's too late. It's been done now, because there was no murder mystery. Yes, someone was murdered. We talked about it a couple times. We came back later. We talked about it a couple times, and then we figured out who did it. There was no like linkage to like be able to figure out who done it. There was nothing. And I think that added plot to the story would have made this story a 3 or 4 star read for me. So I'm very disappointed by it. But if you are looking for just like a cozy fantasy, an intimate read, I do think that this does scream fall for me. So I probably should have put it in a books that scream fall video. But just not murder mystery. I hope the next one is better. This is the problem when you don't really know that much about books and you're just kind of going off lists that you saw on the internet. I was trying to look up fantasy books with murder mysteries in them, and I stumbled across these two, and well, the Goblin Emperor I kind of knew had one, but I thought it was more prominent than it was. Anyways, see you in a bit. Okay, I think I have what I need to have now. I think I figured out part 1. So I needed to figure out why Veronica couldn't be on that motorcycle, essentially. Next time I'm going to this page first so that I know what I'm looking for, because I did a whole lot for nothing. Well, probably not for nothing. This will probably be my last end guess. But so my guess is that we need to use the Town Center Motors invoice, which says Veronica's miles were 1867.3, and line them up with this picture of her motorcycle that's like up close, and it says it only has 1868. So she went literally less than a mile. But if you look at the map, it is about 4 miles from the motorcycle shop to where the motorcycle was found. So that's impossible. So let's see if I use all 4 of those things, if I got part 1 right. Well, if we got part 1 right. Okay, so I need to use cut brake line photo, Robin Falls map, and Town Center Motors invoice. Okay, I need to open a bonus envelope for a fresh lead on the case. Ooh, we have a letter from a special agent and a state of Connecticut. Objective number 2, help find Veronica's body. When you think you know the likely whereabouts of Veronica's body, please visit this page to see if you are correct. Okay, I'll be back with my sleuthing abilities. Okay, this part was a lot easier because I didn't have that much to read. I only had 2 new pieces of information to read. One was a state of Connecticut opening up the case, because that's what we did in the last part, is we opened up the case again. We figured out that something was off about it. So this is a bunch of years later, and it is from Joey Caruso's grandchild, and talking about how they need to find Veronica's body because it just doesn't add up that Joey killed Ronnie. And then we have a email letter from Donnie Davidson talking about how back in 47, when he was just 7-year-old, he spent the summer at his Gramps' house in Robin Falls. Gramps always went for a long walk late at night, usually heading out sometime around 9:30 or 10 and covering several miles. And he remembered that on the morning of his 7th birthday, August 27th, which would have been the day that Ronnie went missing, Gramps said it was too bad I hadn't been out with him the night before for a couple of reasons. First, he said he was able to get up and close with Veronica Falcone's humdinger of a bike, as it was parked just outside Wagner's Diner. I sure did love motorcycles back then, still do. And second, he saw Evelyn Churchill out for a walk. This was of highest interest to me because I developed a huge crush on her over the summer. Gramps didn't feel right about her being out by herself, so we walked her back home and told her a pretty young lady shouldn't be out walking by herself at that time of night. Bear with me. I'm getting to the point. When I saw the date Veronica Falcone went missing in the news, I realized it was very night before my birthday when Gramps saw her bike. In hindsight, it seems a little more odd that it was parked out there that night when everything in town would have been closed up tight for hours, especially since it was the same night she disappeared. The only problem is that there's no Wagner's Diner. Before Gram passed, she always had to tease Gramps that he was losing his marbles. That may have been so, but I know he saw her bike that night because he described it in great detail. Where he actually saw it, I don't know. Like I said, I have no idea if this could be helpful, but wanted to share the event from you. So my first thing I did was try to figure out who Davidson's father was, like grandfather was, and how he was connected. So I went through all the information trying to find where he had been mentioned, and he had been mentioned on Evelyn Churchill's person of interest as her witness for where she was that night because she was on a walk, and William Davidson, deceased now, had walked her home. So they met up. Then I was trying to figure out where their houses were. So I looked here at the house, and Churchill and Davidson are pretty close together, and then I looked at everything around, and there's this place called Brewski's Diner, and I felt like that had to be like something in there. So then I kept looking, and we have a witness statement from Pearl Westbrook, who just kind of talks. She just kind of rambles about everything, but she talks about how there were all these girls that Stanley was obsessed with in high school. And there was this girl named Rosie Wagner who married her high school sweetheart Harry Fletcher. One day while she was waiting tables at her daddy's diner, he had to chase Stanley out with a meat cleaver because he kept ogling Rosie. Which means that Fletcher, Evelyn Churchill's dad's name was Fletcher, as shown on the... Oh, I was wrong. You know what? I was actually wrong. I was right, but I was wrong. So I just got to the same conclusion, but there is a place called Fletcher's Family Diner. Evelyn Fletcher inherited her dad and mom had a restaurant from her grandfather named Fletcher's Family Restaurant, so that's where the body must be, right? Like, that's where the bike was left, so like I feel like that's a good place to look for the body, and I was correct. And now we can open the next thingy-mabobble to do. If I can find where I put it. God, I suck at opening these things. I hope this one was just as easy. There's a picture in here, I think. Ooh, a couple pictures. We have new pictures. Okay. I wanted to update you on the vlog, and it's kind of funny because I'm actually at a cemetery currently, and I didn't mean for that to happen. I'm on location for a wedding, and there's like a cute little chapel, and then it's like the back is a cemetery. It's gonna be really pretty. But I wanted to update you on the book because I have been flying through this book. Let's look where I'm at. I'm on chapter 6. I have no idea. 25% left. 25% left. I'm listening to it on Scribd, actually. I didn't realize it was on Scribd, and I'm excited. I just had to re-buy Scribd, actually, because I had this whole issue where people were using my link in my bio to get, like, that free trial, which also gives me a free trial, like, a free period. And because I paid through my Apple Pay, they couldn't actually give those to me, and it was an issue. But that's not why we're here. It's fixed now. It is fixed now. So this started off really, really good for me. I think the first 10% I was absolutely hooked. The first scene is a courtroom scene, and how did I not know that? I'm obsessed with courtrooms. I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a defense lawyer, like a criminal lawyer. And my uncle is a criminal lawyer, and I love hearing like any stories he can tell you or like tidbits, and then I just love it. And like Suits, any like courtroom dramas, fun. So this scene in the courtroom was like A1 for me, like A+, and we kind of got to know our deceased person in that one, which was kind of fun. And then you skipped like our actual story, and this is a murder mystery. This is what I wanted. This is 100% what I wanted. We set up the scene of this like deceased person who was working that everyone hated because of the thing he was working on, but his like old student friend comes to like figure out what happened to him and realizes that he was working on much more than he was saying, and like you're just trying to figure out who done it, and it's really, really fun. The other thing I really, really enjoyed about this is I think Robert Jackson Bennett sets up his fantasy worlds so well. He did it in Foundry Side too, where he's just giving you enough to like keep you interested, keep you intrigued without like fully knowing. Like, I find his magic systems aren't as like upfront info dump hard as like a Sanderson, but like you're learning it enough, and it's still a hard magic system, but you learn it as you go, and I really enjoy that part of his writing, and I think it's a really cool setup for a book. I'll explain what the book is about now that I kind of know. I'm waiting for the clients to turn in and see me recording myself. So the book is where in this world there used to be gods and divine beings, and they had their own, like, they were up in heaven essentially, but they like came down and like they had an impact on humanity and society. At one point, someone decided to kill them and get rid of them. So the day that they were killed, it just kind of like in the blink of an eye destroyed anything about them. So now, in this one city where the gods were really prominent, there's just this city of stairs that leads to, like, nothing, but it used to lead to something, and we're trying to, like, figure out, guess what it kind of used to lead to, because at this point in the time, it's this, like, odd time where there's people old enough to remember before the blink, because that's what they call it when they died, but there's also enough younger generations who didn't know that part and don't really care. And I'm really liking that, and like it adds to the mystery of like the whodunit, because our deceased character was also like researching what happened and how the gods and the divine creatures were just murdered so easily. And the magic, like, there hasn't been like a very distinct magic, but we do have like giants, and there has been hints at the world doesn't think that there's any divine creatures anymore, but there are like certain people, our protagonist is one of them, who goes and like gets rid of them when like a little hint happens that there are still like leftovers of the gods, so that no one can know, and like you're not allowed to talk about the gods or do anything that resembles anything divine, which is kind of where our issues happen. I don't know, I really think it's a cool magic system, and I'm really, really enjoying that part. I will say, as I kept reading, probably about the last 5%, the characters do feel a little dry to me. I definitely prefer the character writing in Foundry Side. I did like the characters in Foundry Side, although I don't think the characters are the strongest suit of Foundry Side either, and I think the magic system is still the strongest part of Foundry Side. I do think Robert Jackson Bennett could use a little bit more work on his character and the depth of his characters, but there's so much else that's happening in this to still like hold my attention. And I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really intrigued to see, like, what happened to this guy. At one point, we're like, is he really dead, or is he, like, off? Did he go up the stairs? I'm not entirely sure, but I'm super excited, and it's been fun, and there's a little bit of a school setting in, like, one of the chapters. I don't know if we're going to keep getting flashbacks to that school setting, but we have gotten some, and I really did enjoy that. I think we won't now, because I've never seen this book on, like, a school setting list, but it definitely fits murder mystery, and I'm super excited, because this is what I wanted from a murder mystery. Also, it's very political. I forgot to say that. Our protagonist is, like, the cultural ambassador, technically. That's, like, her title, and how she, like, goes places and gets rid of things and has, like, easy pass. So then we kind of get to see, like, court, like, we get to see the intrigues, and the city that we're in is, like, very behind the times and doesn't want to, like, move into the future, and so you're kind of seeing some of, like, the issues with, like, people trying to get them to move forward and them not moving forward and all of that. So yeah, that's my update for now, and I will update you again in a bit. I promise I won't wait till the end to update you, and I'll update you probably around like 50 or 60%, or if I have any just like exciting thoughts, like who I think did it. But see you soon. No update, but like we just have the prettiest sunsets. Like, that's through a blind. Look at that. I just stopped at my cabin to grab some stuff because we forgot things, and everything in this book just escalated. Well, not everything, but like the murder mystery. I am at 27%, so I actually haven't made it that far since the last update. Just had an assassination attempt on our protagonist. So it's kind of escalated to a point of what was the person that was deceased looking at, but also what am I close to finding out that someone would try to kill me, which I think is kind of fun. Now, I want to say the story is very analytically written. Our character, our protagonist, is very analytical. She reminds me of, I can't remember her name right now, but in The Ninth Reign, who was also kind of a scientist, and any like of that archetype, I guess. It also does kind of remind me of the Goblin Emperor in the terms of it's very just like small. Like the scale feels very small. But I'm liking it better in this book, although I will say, like, I'm having a little bit of struggles now because I'm finding it a little too analytical. Like, when the person, when she has an assassination attempt, she runs through her head on, like, who could have done it and why, and she's very, like, okay, this is what I think it could have been. Here are 2 reasons why it could have been that, and here are 2 reasons why it could be that. And just, she goes through a list of, like, 5 of those reasons with the 2 and 2 for positive and negative. And it's very like flat, almost. I feel like flat's a bad word. Maybe dry is better. And I think it's supposed to be written like that. And I think that if I'm not attached to the character at this point, but I am intrigued by the murder mystery and the world still. That's all I really had to say. It did just escalate, and I'm excited to see where it goes from here. And I do like the giant character, and I do kind of like her school friend. But we'll see. We'll keep you updated. I'm really hoping that this is better than The Goblin Emperor. And the last book I read right now currently was Babel. So I just can't be worse than that, right? I feel like I've updated you so much, but I feel like there's so many interesting things happening that I want to update you on. So at this point, I just wanted to talk about this one scene that I have never heard talked about. Honestly, I was not on BookTube when this book came out, so I have no idea if this book got like hyped back then. I know Foundry Side got a little hype when it came out, so like maybe, but no one ever talks about this book. And there's like very niche things that happen in this book that I think if you want books like that, you'll love. This one has a beautiful food cooking scene. So you know that prompt in Realmathon that was like a book featuring food? I feel like this book would be perfect for that prompt. Because essentially we have a story being told. It's like a giant info dump, but it happens while she's cooking, and they describe what she's doing. So she's peeling back the layers of an onion while she's talking about like peeling back the issues with religion and the deities and all of that. And then like at the end there's like the sizzling of something that dropped on the stove, because there's like a dun 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 moment, but you'd have this sizzling. And I just really enjoyed that, and I just wanted to shout this out that like it does have a really cool cooking scene, and it features food, and they talk about them eating the food, and just like it gives me coziness. This book somehow gives me coziness, even though it's talking about such an expansive world. And I always want to discuss what's happening with you guys, but it's hard because the way you learn about the world is very like with the character. And so there's kind of a mystery to it. So I don't want to give that away, but I need someone to read this book so I can kind of talk about what's happening and what they've learned. So maybe that'll be you. I'm all dressed up because I'm about to film the video that you guys will have already seen where I go through murder mysteries. But I finished City of Stairs by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is getting a solid high 3 from me, like a 3.5 to a 3.75. There are some things about this that I really adored, and then there are some things that just didn't hit hard enough for me. I honestly feel very similar to this as I did with Foundry Side, that the world building and the magic and the intrigue are so high, but the characters just don't hit hard. So I think that's interesting, and I definitely think I can see where Robert Jackson Bennett's flaws and strengths are. And I am excited to continue this series at some point. Will it be right now? No, I didn't have the overwhelming feel to binge the series afterwards. I feel like this book does wrap up quite nicely, although you do get like an expansiveness in it, but it wraps up quite nicely, and I liked where it ended. I liked where it went. We can get into some like actual like thoughts, and also I got my little cute ghost mug in, and I'm super excited. This is Margarita. With City of Stairs, this is like the beginning and the first half are very much a true murder mystery, and by that actually I mean the whole book. The whole book is very much true to the murder mystery type pathway. So it's typically something I hate in fantasy books, but I really enjoy with murder mysteries is how straightforward they are. We have a path in this. We have point A to point B, and we are going straight down that path. There is not a lot of other complexities to it. Essentially, everything that happens in the story just feels like a distraction or a challenge to get us to the end, to figure out who done it. And I love that in a murder mystery. So I really enjoyed that, but I know that in high fantasy, that's not something I enjoy. I definitely prefer a lot more complexities in the story and not just have everything kind of just be a little workaround to get us there, if that makes sense. Another thing that I don't typically like in fantasy that I think that this book pulled off quite well is the addition of a random POV. This is a single POV story besides, I think, 2 chapters. It actually only might be 1, but I think there's 2 chapters that are told in another POV. Normally, I despise this. Like, make it a multi-charactered book, then I don't like the random POV typically. But the way it was done in this made me feel like I was getting a full story. It wasn't trying to give away anything or tell us information that was like elsewhere in the world, which is why I think I normally hate it, is normally that POV kind of ruins lots of the mystery. This POV happens when we're going into a fight and our main character turns to this character and says, "You go fight them." And if we had just followed our main character, we would have had no idea what happened in that fight, and it would have just felt very convenient the way it ended because, like, essentially, the villain should have won in that fight, you know, all powerful. But because we skip into this character's POV, we then get to see how it's all done, and it feels very rewarding to see it all done, and I really, really enjoyed that part. Something I really also enjoyed about this is how political it was. I was not expecting a political story. There is a lot of intrigue in this, and I think around 65%, we kind of lose sight of that normal murder mystery. We aren't at the point where we're just trying to figure out who killed the first guy. We have expanded and the world kind of just like loops around, and it becomes more about the mystery of the magic, the mystery of the world, the mystery of the conspiracies happening. And it's very political, all of that. There's a lot of political machinations happening and who is dirty in the political world, all of that, instead of just like being like solely focused on this whodunit. We do still get a satisfying ending to the whodunit. I guessed 50%, which I think is good. I only guessed some things that happened in this book. I did not guess all of them, and I really liked that. I was really like kept leading on, and even my guesses, like I guessed it, but I wasn't 100% sure. Like I was like, it could be this person. Like I think it could be. But it was never like 100% that's the person. And I don't think I had an actual guess until about 70-75% in. Which I think that's when it like starts to expand more. More things I liked about this. I loved the setting. This is not your typical medieval fantasy. There is guns in this. There is, like, it's more urban, but it's not urban. I don't really know how to explain it. It's not urban in terms of like a city that we all know and love. It is a city that is based, it's like a Russian-inspired city, I believe. And it is not in the Dark Age, but it's not what we know today. It's not urban in terms of that. There's no cell phones, but they have more to life than just like they have running water. Okay? They have more to life. And I really liked that kind of take on it. I typically don't like an urban fantasy, so this really worked for me because it kind of felt like, it didn't feel like my world. It felt like I was in a fantasy world still. Like it felt unique and creative, and I really enjoyed that, which Foundry Side also does. And I love that for it. You know, as I talk about this book, it makes me want to pick up the next book and Foundry Side. They just I don't know what it is about them that I never feel the need or the urge to pick up his next books in his series. But like, I want to pick them up. I want to continue. I want to know where the story goes. I think the TBR pile is just so high. What else did I like about this book? I really liked our giant character. I thought what they did with him is really cool, and I think he will expand upon and be a really cool character, an interesting character in the next books. I still will critique that this book just feels a little flat in terms of characters, which I think Foundry Side did too personally. I was never like fully immersed in the characters and really felt for them or cared for them. Something happens in this book that I probably should have cried about, but I didn't. And I don't know, I really just love the world and the lore, and the way that this book just slowly, like, it starts out, like, here, and just, like, it just, like, slowly gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. I really, really liked how that was done. And, like, the idea of the gods and, well, the idea of the deities and the deities' creatures and a human having killed the deities, and how did that happen? What does that mean? Does that mean the deities weren't all powerful? And, like, all these different conversations and discussions that they have in this book about religion and how religion can be good and how it can also be bad, and all of this other stuff I felt was really, really, really done well. And yeah, I definitely think that I will continue at some point. Will continue Foundry Side, and I will pick up another series by Robert Jackson Bennett. I think this is weaker than Foundry Side, so I think that it's just going to continue to get better, and I really hope that he comes out with another series that I can try too, but I do need to catch up on these ones. Other than that, I felt like I had something to say. Oh, there is like a spooky element. You will be seeing this in my recommendation video for like spooky fantasy books. It just has like a little bit of horror. There's some like creatures in here that are like a little horror-ish. And yeah, I like the spooky elements that were brought into this, and I do think it's a perfect like fall read, especially if you're not someone who really wants like a horror book. It's just got like a little bit of spooky elements to add to the fantasy. Okay, our last objective, well, objective 3 is to figure out who killed Veronica. My guess, without doing anything, is it's Sam Shepard. It's the sheriff, okay? That is my guess, but let's figure this out together. I want to congratulate you on your excellent work pinpointing the area we should look for Veronica Falcone. I'm very proud to say that we found her body. It was buried in a shallow grave behind what used to be Wagner's Diner and was later renamed Fletcher's Family Restaurant after Rosie Wagner's father passed it down to her and husband Harry Fletcher. That makes so much sense. We couldn't get approved for any heavy equipment, but going on your hunch, we settled with shovels, metal detectors, a few cadaver dogs, and our gut instincts. It paid off because after several hours in that area, we came upon a patch of ground about the size of a body that was suspiciously a few inches lower than the surrounding grass. The metal detectors alerted us something beneath the surface, and we dug deeper, then the dogs became more and more restless. Veronica's remains were just 3 feet down. It was very difficult for me to see who used to be such a vibrant young woman who meant the world to my mother and grandfather decompose in the dirt like that. But it's a good thing because Veronica can now properly be put to rest and will finally give my mother closure. I know she will go out to visit her grave frequently along with her body. We also found a .38 caliber bullet inside her skull. There were some other items too, including the threatening note my grandfather returned to and no one believed. Joey always talks about how there was a threatening note on red paper in all of his stuff, and everyone says that he made it up. I'm sure whoever wrote that red note wanted to shut his mouth about it since he told so many people in town that Veronica was investigating something and had received a death threat. Unfortunately, the remains have no lasting forensic evidence we can tie to any of the other suspects, but it's quite obvious Veronica was in the act of uncovering something big, something worth killing her to keep secret. But what were they hiding, and why did Veronica Falcone have to lose her life for it? If we can figure out what she was investigating, we'll be able to tie these suspects to her death. I'm sure of it. What was Veronica investigating? We have to find out, and I need your help. My superiors in Hartford were glad we found the body while staying below budget, but they're already breathing down my neck about closing the case, and the press has implied that it's only a matter of time, which makes us look horrible if we can't solve it. I've included our report and the evidence my special agent and I found. It is my hope that between us we will crack this case soon. I'm not sure what will happen to the three other agents in my unit and myself if we can't. Ooh, dun dun dun. Okay, so we have a medical examiner's office that goes over everything that happened to her. 27, this has nothing exciting besides the fact that there was a gunshot wound. Like, there's nothing interesting on this. Let's look. Field investigation report. They go out to find the body. They enlist the assistance of the Robin County Sheriff's Department. That's a bad idea because it's freaking Sam Shepard. I know it. The body had decomposed almost entirely, leaving nothing but her skeleton remaining along some items found in an old bank bag that itemized and photographed. There was a .38 caliber bullet found lodged in the front of her skull. Along with the body, you also find several items of significance which have taken into custody and photographed for the case. And the bullet found inside the victim's skull was confirmed to have been fired from the gun found in the grave. However, the serial number of the gun was filed off, so we have no way to trace it. They're certainly seeking other help. And then we have the Cold Case Criminal Investigation Unit. Just saying what we had. She had a spy camera heavily corroded and smashed, possibly with a rock. Traces amounts of feldspar and quartz were found in the camera in the impact location. A roll of film found inside the camera contains one savage photo of a blurred hand. A threatening note on faded red paper says, Falcone, back off, or I'll bury you with a 38 through the back of your skull. Well, that happened. A single $10 bill. Okay, another bill. Brown leather wallet, Canadian Victor's driver's license, and library card. Both match library and motor vehicle records. Brass later with inscription R. You light my life. Love always, J. Must be from Joey. Okay, let's look at these pictures we have. What the? This is creepy. I need 2 items to identify the killer. Why would they put the lighter? I don't know what I need. I feel like it can't be the map again. Like, Evelyn's father used to be the former bank president. It all leads me towards Evelyn and her uncle. Like, I think that's his motive. It has to be, right? Because, like, we have in the case, there's, like, this thing that says bank and trust. She must have been investigating something about the bank. And Veronica was, before she disappeared, was at the town clerk's office to inquire about marriage records. And we do have this, like, marriage license that says that Elizabeth Churchill's maiden name of the mother is Shepherd. I think that family's into something. I think I need... Oh, Evelyn Churchill. Her mom would have been Elizabeth Hardcastle. I swear from the very beginning, I saw it was Sam Shepherd. I could need this witness statement. I think it has to do... Oh, Samuel Shepherd, father, his great-grandfather started the paper back in 1865, and it's been in the family ever since. And he put Ed in charge. This whole raccoon thing is just sus. Like, they're letting out a raccoon in the middle of the night? Like, come on, this is just sus. I literally think it was Ed and Sam. 100%. Let's see, I think I need witness statement. What about a letter? Where'd my letters go? So much everywhere. Norman Chase's letter. Edward Hamilton. There's so many H's. EH's.
A few minutes later.
So, I now know who killed Veronica. I figured it out. Turns out, I do not put Cassidy on the case. Cassidy is not good on the case because this entire time I thought it was Sam Shepherd. We get to the point where I have to guess who it is, and it only gives me the 5 of them. So it had to be either Edward Hamilton, Joey Caruso, Mildred Morehouse, Stanley Smith, or Evelyn Churchill. When I tried to figure out the crime that they are covering up, I looked at the suspect interview, and I just thought it was really sus that he kept going to the jewelers, and then there was money in all of her pictures. So I really looked at the pictures in this one and the cigar cutters, and it just felt odd. And so I kind of mostly guessed. I can't lie. I mostly just guessed because I don't think those were anything. Essentially, and then I guessed because I feel like the only one who made sense after looking at everything was Edward Hamilton. But to be honest, Sam Shepherd is still, like, I think that this whole case is wrong, and Sam Shepherd definitely murdered Ronnie. But Edward Hamilton killed Veronica Falcone because she caught him counterfeiting money. So here's our last one. Dear investigator, you did it. Somehow you managed to solve 2 murders and uncover one of the largest unsolved counterfeiting operations in the history of the United States Treasury, and you saved my department. After you alerted us that both of Veronica's $10 bills had identical serial numbers matching Ed Hamilton's anniversary date, we brought his son in for questioning. He provided a complete statement detailing his father's deathbed confessions to counterfeiting and other horrible acts he and Sheriff Shepherd committed. Hey, Sheriff Shepherd committed them too. I was right. Sheriff Shepherd was sus this entire time, and you can't even see his picture. Let me fix that. Look at this sus man. Justice for Veronica has been a long time coming. It's hard to imagine what it must have been like for her. Despite the danger, her courage to go after those men is truly inspiring to me. In doing so, Veronica gave her life, and the truth would have remained buried with her if she hadn't uncovered it. Your detective skills have even altered the landscape of the local Robin Falls community. Back in 1953, Robin Falls Park was renamed Hamilton Park after Edward Hamilton, who had become a notable philanthropist and was voted mayor of Robin Falls in 1949. A statue of his likeness was even erected in the park. I'm happy to say the town council unanimously voted to take down a statue and erect a new one in the likeness of Veronica Falcone. They've even renamed it Veronica Falcone Memorial Park. The case made national news and brought a lot of positive publicity to our unit. My superiors eagerly agreed to keep us up and running for several more years, and numerous veterans have donated generously to our unit. We're even talks with a Hollywood production company that wants to make a movie about the case. Ooh, I could be the star of your movie. Covers with Cassidy on the case again. And the dedication ceremony for Veronica Falcone Memorial Park, Special Agents Jordan O'Donnell, Taylor Belanger, Casey Woods, and I managed to snap a picture in front of Veronica's new statue. I wish you could have joined us, considering our unit wouldn't even exist anymore without you. We're hiring new agents, by the way. I think you'd be a shoo-in for the position. Thank you for bringing justice to the amazing Veronica Falcone and for saving my family's good name. And thank you for redeeming the Connecticut Cold Case Criminal Investigation Unit. Your work today will result in countless other cold case murderers being brought to justice. And then we have a witness statement form. To whom it may concern. What I'm about to reveal to you were my father's dying words to me. Once the officer started asking about my father's counterfeiting money, I figured I should come forward with everything I knew. I should have done this years ago, but I just couldn't do it to my mother. Maybe you would have done the same in my situation. On the night of August 26, 1947, my father shot and killed Veronica Falcone. He and Samuel Shepard buried her body and threw her motorcycle into Jackson Ravine. Sus. You a sus man. Then they set it up to look like Joey Caruso murdered her and staged his jailhouse suicide in confession. That's sad. My father explained to me that he never intended any harm. A small plan to make her feel bucks got out of control, and he did what he needed to protect his family. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but this is... Well, I've been doing this for hours now. But this is his story. My father and Samuel Shepard were using the printing press at the Observer to counterfeit $10 bills. Of course, my mother and I didn't know. We were told the two went fishing one day and reeled a bag out of the Daily Pond stuffed with 20,000 $10 bills. In retrospect, it was quite odd since they'd never been fishing before, or after that one time, and we were all instructed to keep it a secret. In any event, they knew Veronica Falcone was onto their counterfeiting, so they left a threatening note in her mailbox. It didn't seem to have any effect, so they decided to halt operations after one more night of printing until they could figure a way to drive her out of town. But they were a day late and $1 short. It was around 10:30 on the night she went missing. My father and Sam had been printing bills in the presses when my father remembered he needed to set a trap at our house for a raccoon. He promised my mother he would catch it before we came home from Maine the next day. When my father returned from our house, he spotted Veronica Falcone's motorcycle in front of Fletcher's Family Restaurant. Knowing she must have been snooping around, he parked his car down the street and crept down the road toward the paper. From a distance, he could make out her figure crouched down in front of the basement window where the printing presses were. He knew she was onto them. My father never carried a gun, but apparently Sam armed him with one when they started counterfeiting. He swore he had no intention of using that night. When he pulled out of the glove box, he was only going to threaten her. But as he crept closer and she was about to take a picture of their operation, he panicked, and the next thing he knew, she was dead. My father and Sheriff Shepard put the gun, the red note, and a few other incriminating items into a bag and buried it with her body behind Fletcher's Family Restaurant. It was Sam's idea to drop her motorcycle in the ravine. Not sure where he got that idea. They loaded it into the back of Sam's truck and drove it out to Fall View Road, where they sent it down over the cliff. They assumed no one would find it for months and could blame the missing body on wildlife in the area in that time. But they ran into complication when Veronica's boyfriend, Joey, started telling everyone Veronica had been investigating something big in town and seen the threatening note they left in her mailbox. So he and Sam decided to set Caruso up. He reported that he had worked on her brakes just before she went missing, so they climbed down to the ravine late one night and severed the brake cable. Sheriff Shepard assured my father it would be an open and shut case and the whole problem would go away, but my father found himself the prime suspects in the murder. He became more and more afraid of getting caught. My father convinced the sheriff they had one more dirty deed to perform in order to put it all behind them. The night Joey Caruso was brought in for murdering Veronica Falcone, Sam knocked him out and together they hung him from the rafters. My father wrote, "I killed her" on the wall of the jail cell and said he couldn't stomach to write anything again after that night. He went into early retirement from the paper and started donating large sums of money to worthy causes, perhaps out of guilt. As a final note, Sam has been dead for years. When my father confessed all this to me, his family knew nothing of this either. I've been heavily burdened carrying this all around with me for so long, but now at least it's all in the open. May God grant Sam's children the strength to get through this. They adored him. You know what? I'm just happy that I was right and Sam was sus, and we have a thank you note from the team. I should be in this team. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me on this little adventure. I hope you enjoyed your time with this investigation unit. Hope you enjoyed reading murder mysteries with me. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm gonna bring it back to like Cassidy who can talk about the books. But thanks for hanging out with me, and just so everyone knows, Sam Shepard did it. I was correct from the beginning. I mean, he only half did it, but like, I'll count it. I hope you really enjoyed that murder mystery with me and cracking that cold case. I hope you also really enjoyed reading Sidious Stairs and the Goblin Emperor with me. One was definitely better than the other. I will be continuing one, and I will not be reading the companion novels for the Goblin Emperor, but I will continue this one. And I had a really good time. I guessed who did it kind of in this one and not in that one, but I got our cold case correct, so I feel like I'm living up to this FBI agent hat that I have going on right now. I have joined a cold case team, right? Maybe I should be an FBI agent for Halloween. Anyways, thank you so much for hanging out with me. Next week, what do you have to look forward to from me? I think we're going spooky next week. I think you have a video on Thursday that is spooky fantasy books. And then you have Clowns Are Scary vlog. Don't hold me accountable for what those are, but I'm pretty sure that that's what they are. And then the next week is fall fantasy. Fall books. Because I'm waiting for the leaves to change. It was supposed to be fall next week, but the leaves have not changed enough for me to film the fall content that I want to film. So we're pushing that video up and we're moving others forward. Anyways, thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you'd like to connect with me on other platforms, my Bookstagram, my Book Twitter, my Goodreads, and my Patreon are linked in the description bar below. Have yourselves a spooktacular day and solve some crimes.